Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Yesterday I received 3 to 4 phone calls from people, the community leaders, the well-meaning Canadians, and a mixture of them, South Asians, Jamaicans, and the original immigrants, the whites. There was a concern in their tone. There was apprehension about the way the city is going. And not one city, but as a matter of fact, the way the Canada is going. There was a feeling of fear and apprehension that the government is not, and the political parties are not bothered about this growing tendency. Naturally, I was concerned. And then I thought that these issues concerning cities would assume gigantic proportions and be a source of breakup of a country. And if not a breakup, at least at war within itself. And there can be nothing more dangerous. And yet, I was really shocked that if these community leaders are concerned, why should the national and the provincial leaders not be? Naturally, they are aware of the situation. It is not possible that with the intelligence agencies at their beck and call, they would not be aware, they would be aware, but they are keeping quiet for their own ulterior purposes. Now the issue is, what's more important, a community or a city? Or in other words, should a city be converted into a stronghold of a certain definitive community? Should the mask of multiculturalism be a way to promote certain communities so that they have a pocket borough which they rule? And naturally it says they will be dependent on the political parties. They will strengthen those political parties which support them. And unfortunately they support them at peril to the nation, at peril to the country, at peril to the process of democratic setup. A Jamaican leader told me that the recent order of some municipalities, especially in Toronto, Mississauga and Brampton, permitting the broadcasting of Azan, the call to prayer, is to placate Muslim community, which I can understand. Now I have nothing against Azan and the Muslims call to the faithful to the pray, the prayers, to come together and pray, is something which is of concern only to that religion and nobody else has the right to say it. But to amend a bylaw has a certain repercussion, and that is that the other communities will start demanding the same. And once a wrong action is taken, it has a multiplier effect. But I could even bear that. The Jamaican leader and a South Asian leader who was very close to the former Prime Ministers, Manning and others, she told me that certain politicians, or rather a family of politicians in Brampton, started the move to ensure that people of a certain community control the Sikh. This family is well-knit family but has tentacles in diverse parties. They are in NDP, they are supposedly to be independent, and they have representation. This family has representation in the provincial parliament, in the federal parliament, and in the city council of Brampton. They started with getting a street named after the first guru of the Sikhs, Guru Nanak. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, though I'm against renaming as a matter of principle. But that was done. And the matter should have ended there. But then they got somebody appointed as head of the HR. And it was said that the person who was appointed was not competent enough. I'm no judge, I've not even met the person. But this is what the leaders are saying. And then it's a matter of inquiry if that is so. It was alleged that this person has been commissioned to ensure that the people of a certain community are appointed. An executive director of a leading NGO told me once that once one member of a certain community becomes a member of the board of that organization, his or her efforts are directed to ensure that all further recruitment is only directed towards that community and all the benefits go to that community. That's a matter of concern, and that calls for an inquiry. But what's happening here, according to the message conveyed to me by these community leaders, was that they are planning, this family and their friend and the co, to ensure that the city becomes a stronghold of a certain community. Here it says a similar move is going on in Mississauga, where the Muslim leaders wanted to be a stronghold of the Muslim community. My response was that where there's a majority of a certain population, they always have control on that. But it's not like that. According to the former Conservative Party strategies, Sikhs constitute a very small minority of the votes, but they're very vocal. And the mayor is beholden to them, so he would go ahead with them. Now here's the curious thing. According to these community leaders, the real leaders are playing a game of divide and rule, the classic British imperialistic policy. And the purpose is to keep these communities divided so that they can rule. Unfortunately, they forget that this separate feeling of separatism, this feeling of creating pockets is fraught with danger. And they are in fact conceiving Frankenstein, the devil incarnate, who when he grows up, or she grows up, would have devastating effects. You must have read the novel of Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. And we have seen it in other parts of the world. One of the Prime Minister's son created a Frankenstein in Punjab. And the Holocaust which took place, killing thousands of Hindus and then later on thousands of Sikhs, necessitating military action in the holiest shrine of the Sikhs. And the wound is still not healed. The same happened in Sri Lanka, where LTTE, which was quoted by India at one time, became the biggest terrorist movement. The same thing happened in Pakistan. The same thing happened in Burma. All these nations have seen how once you start the process of igniting separatism, and not exactly separatism to begin with, but to begin with lust for power and control, and the classic Indian strategy that no mean is foul enough to achieve that purpose. Whether you bribe, whether you punish, whether you give brief, or you convince, whatever. The classic words are Sam, Dand, Bhed. Divide them, give them money, give them power, but attack people. So this is happening in Brampton and in Mississauga. But I can visualize the same thing happened in Surrey, the same thing happening in mini China or Little Italy, where these communities, small communities, would set up, and then this country would become an assemblage of nationalities and not a Canadian nation. And that will be the beginning of the end of the country's integrity and its progress. The point that arises and which I am concerned is, what is more important? Is it important to have power? Yes, it is. But is it important enough to sacrifice the interest of the country? It is not. In reality, the federal government should come very heavily on such tendencies, because that should be considered as a treason, if that's true. Now, I am saying if that's true because the community leaders told me, but I have not verified it. So, but then I am striking a note of caution. The billion-dollar question facing the nation is, should we become a host to the desires of certain people or a certain family? And I am not naming anybody, because it should first be a matter of inquiry. When Madam Jacobson told me that she is approaching all the journalists to come up and ensure, I told her that nothing is going to happen. Because until there is a sense of integrity and definite patriotism overriding all interests, whether personal or political, no action would be taken. Now this is a high time that a high-level committee is constituted to go into the facts of the nature and see how far it's true. The process of disintegration starts with greed. And these upstart families, I know it for certain, I've seen that happen in various parts of the world. I saw it happen in Congo, where Mobutu was responsible for breakup of Congo into Katanga. I've seen it happen in India, where the state of Bombay had to be bifurcated into Gujarat and Mumbai. I've seen it happen in Punjab and Haryana in India. I've seen it happen in Sri Lanka, I've seen it happen in Pakistan, and I've seen it happen in the breakup of India into India, Pakistan, and then India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Would we like that to happen here in Canada? Not me. It's a beautiful country, a resource-rich country which has given refuge to the people from all over the world. And should we let one or two communities which are aggressive, politically oriented, and would spare no means to come to power to break up the Canadian dream? We approach July 1, the Canada Day? Should we not be apprehensive that this Canada Day might be, I'm saying might be, it's just a facade for celebration and indirectly, in fact, a day of the fulminations, machinations of those voices that seek to break the traditional Canadian values. I'm concerned, and so should you be. So should every right-thinking person and Canadian be. As a matter of fact, petty personal political ambitions should not be allowed to flourish at the cost of the country's integrity. And if what these community leaders are telling me is correct, I see a dark future, and I'm giving a dire warning to the authorities that be to wake up, investigate, and if there is even an iota of truth, even an iota, come up with a heavy hand on the perpetrators of this crime against a nation. Am I asking too much? Think about it. Would you let the Canadian values to be a matter of a joke and a mockery? I hope not. I hope sense dawns on the people. I have no hope from these perpetrators, these ambitious souls, these Lucifers and Beelzebubs, these people who can play with the lives of the people and the integrity of a nation. But should I not hope from the real concerned patriotic Canadians that they wake up before it's too late? Think about it. Thank you.